welcome to the Spice Rack. I'm Shannon Spicer, and I'd like to add a little spice to your quilting. This is week 6 of my series, the Spicerack Sampler. Our block this week is called Railroad. It's similar to a Jacob's Ladder design, but with a bit more complexity. If you're just now joining in on this series, check out my channel to see the other blocks and tutorials. This is a 12-block series of classic blocks that I'm remaking in a modern way. I'm making each of these blocks with just 2 solid colors to achieve a modern look. I knew I wanted a variety of the classics that we all know and love, but since I'm doing just 2 tones, I knew I didn't want anything too simplistic looking. So the added complexity I saw in this railroad block was just what I was looking for. You can download the pattern for this week's block by clicking the link below in the description. And for more information about this set, visit my blog. This block comes together quickly and easily. We only need 4 pieces. I've only got a light strip and a dark strip, and a light square and a dark square. We're going to use 2 different skills that we've learned previously: strip piecing that we used on our first block, rail fence, and then half square triangles done 4 at a time that we've been using on the last 3 blocks. First, I'm going to do my strip piecing. I'm going to put right sides together of these 2 strips and sew the complete length using a 1/4 inch seam. And then we will subcut them. Okay, so I've got my piece sewn together, the full length. I'm going to press it. And with this one, you could press open or press to the side. Either way, it's really not going to make a difference. So whichever you prefer, whichever is easier. Okay, so here we have it pressed open, and we will now subcut it, which means to cut it this way into different sections according to the measurements in the pattern. And I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. My favorite brand of rulers is Omnigrid here, and I especially like this little one that I found. It's 2.5 inches by 8 inches. I'll put a link in the description below to this. You will end up with 10 of these little pieces, and we will make checkerboards with them. If we sew together the pairs like this, they will be little square checkerboard blocks. And we will have 5 of them. So this is why I said it didn't matter if you press your seams open or press to the side. Since we reverse them, and I press to the side, if I match them up, those seams nest properly. I've got one seam pressed to the left and one pressed to the right, so they lie flat. They don't create too much bulk. So I'm going to go and sew all these together, and with these, since they're all the same, I can chain piece them. So these are what I mean when I say chain piece. I've explained this in some of the videos in the past. If you have all the same kind of pieces, you can just feed one through the machine and don't cut your thread, and keep feeding through, and they are all chained together. And then we can take some snip scissors and just snip them apart. And now we will press these units open. Okay, so here we have 5 different checkerboard blocks. 5 little checkerboards. We're going to set those aside, and now we're going to make our half square triangles. using these two pieces, using the 4 at a time method like we've done in the last 3 videos. So you will take your pieces and put them right sides together. If someone knows how to tell the right side from the wrong side on a solid fabric, please let me know. I don't think it really matters too much. Put your right sides together. You can pin if you want, but I don't. Doesn't really matter on this. And starting up in a corner, a 1/4 inch in, we're going to sew all the way around the perimeter using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I've actually filmed this for the last couple of weeks already, so I'm going to use some of that footage with a yellow fabric. Okay, here we have all 4 of our items that are sewed all the way around the edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I will line up my ruler from point to point. You want to position your piece so that you can cut one way and the other without shifting and moving your piece. So I'm going to cut this way. And then without moving the piece, I'm going to move the ruler and line it up on the opposite points. So now we have 4 pieces. And then we will press these open and we will have our little half square triangles. Okay, so now I have my half square triangles complete, pressed open, and trimmed to the size that I need them. And now we can take our checkerboard pieces that we set aside and we can arrange all the pieces into the railroad block. Now we will sew them together the traditional method by attaching the pieces in the first row together to complete one row. Then we would complete the second row and the third row, and then attach the first row to the second row, and so on to the third row. But before we do, I want to point out one specific thing that you want to pay attention to closely before you sew them together. We have these 3 checkerboard pieces that are arranged in a way to create this line, and these 2 checkerboard pieces here are turned the opposite way. You notice they're not facing all the same direction. You want to make sure you're not putting them all the same direction. I suppose you could if you want to, but it's not the original design and it's not going to look quite the same. So double check your placement before you sew together and then start sewing them together. So here we have the complete block railroad. Like I said, it's similar to the Jacob's Ladder pattern, which has this center piece, but it has these additional areas here, and I guess it's called railroad because this kind of looks like railroad tracks. I said earlier in the video that these 2 checkerboard blocks are opposite direction of these, and be sure that you have them in the right placement before you sew them together. And I said you could flip them if you want, and you can do whatever you want in your quilting. But I do notice that the way they are here is it creates this single blue piece that almost kind of looks like a crown there and there. If you flipped it, you would have a white here instead, and it would break up that piece. And since you do have this blue piece and this blue piece here, it keeps this white nice and straight. If you had this flipped and you had the little white block there, it would not keep this nice smooth line as well. So, to each their own, do whatever you want, but that's just a thought that I had. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. You can download the pattern using the link in the description below. Next week, we'll be making the Blocks and Stars block. If you'd like to be alerted when each pattern is released, then sign up for my newsletter by following the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think of this block in the comments below.